A few hours ago, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation officially announced that the grouping of troops of the Russian armed forces under the designation ZAPAD had completely liberated the strategically important settlements of Rozovka and Peschanoe in the Kupyansk direction of the front. At the same time, it is important to note that these settlements have been under the control of the Russian army for the last few days. However, it is only now that Russian troops have carried out a complete cleanup of these settlements, which allowed the Russian military department to officially announce the liberation of these urban-type villages. In addition, the Russian military department also officially announced that on the night of July 21st, the Russian armed forces launched another missile attack on enemy military installations in Ukraine. However, before I show you the details of this missile attack, which resulted in the destruction of a large number of military facilities of the Ukrainian army and NATO forces, I would like to start this video with a discussion of the serious successes of Russian troops in almost all directions of the front. So, commenting on the situation in the Donetsk direction of the front, war correspondents noted that Russian troops are actively conducting offensive operations in almost all areas of this front. In particular, in Krasnogorovka, Russian troops continue to put pressure on the grouping of the armed forces of Ukraine, forcing Ukrainian units to retreat to the northern outskirts of the city. Nevertheless, although Ukrainian and Western military experts admit that Russian troops are putting pressure on the Ukrainian army in Krasnogorovka for the purposes of propaganda, they continue to convince their readers through their articles that there have been no serious changes on the front line. Moreover, in order to justify the retreat of the Ukrainian armed forces, Ukrainian propagandists continue to claim that Russian troops are achieving success in Krasnogorovka only thanks to the so-called meat assaults. However, Australian war correspondent Tom Cooper, who often visits the battlefield and communicates with Ukrainian soldiers, bluntly stated that all statements by Ukrainian sources that Russian troops are suffering heavy losses in Krasnogorovka do not correspond to the truth. According to him, the Russian army does not conduct so-called meat assaults, incurring heavy losses in manpower. Tom Cooper claims that Russian troops are slowly but surely continuing to advance in Krasnogorovka. An Australian war correspondent even described the tactics of the Russian army in Krasnogorovka. According to him, Russian troops are seizing the streets and neighborhoods of this city with the help of constant bombing and artillery strikes. These constant strikes are forcing Ukrainian soldiers to leave the streets and houses and retreat to the northern outskirts of the city. This tactic allows Russian troops to avoid enemy ambushes in urban combat and save the lives of their soldiers. In general, an Australian war correspondent admits that Russian troops do not suffer heavy losses in manpower, and at the same time continue to slowly knock out the units of the armed forces of Ukraine from Krasnogorovka. In Volodar direction of the front, the position of the armed forces of Ukraine also continues to deteriorate rapidly. According to Ukrainian war correspondents, Russian troops continue to strengthen their offensive here. At the same time, they regretfully admit that the Ukrainian army is forced to retreat on a very wide section of the front, since the terrain in this area does not allow the Ukrainian armed forces to create powerful defensive lines. Moreover, war correspondents also confirmed that Russian troops had taken the Mariinka-Volodar highway under fire control. All this led to the fact that the Ukrainian High Military Command faced serious problems with the supply of the grouping of the armed forces of Ukraine in Volodar. In addition, Russian electronic warfare systems have completely suppressed NATO communication systems in this direction of the front.
According to Ukrainian soldiers, Russian troops have learned to determine the exact location of the Ukrainian army units by radio communication of Ukrainian commanders. It is reported that recently, there have been more frequent cases when units of the armed forces of Ukraine went on the air through closed communication channels. And in a few minutes, they were hit by Russian artillery systems. All this led to the fact that many commanders of the units of the armed forces of Ukraine simply stopped communicating through closed communication channels for fear of being discovered and destroyed by the Russian artillery. American military advisors have already called these Ukrainian commanders cowards. According to them, the unwillingness of some Ukrainian commanders to use closed communication channels is a manifestation of cowardice and irresponsibility, as a result of which the armed forces of Ukraine loses the ability to restrain the enemy's offensive in key sectors of the front. Meanwhile, on the night of July 21, Russia launched another missile attack on the territory of Ukraine. This time, such regions of Ukraine as Sumy, Chernihiv, and Kyiv were subjected to a missile attack. It is reliably known that this time, the Russian military used only Iskander ballistic missiles and the latest Kamikaze drones. As it turned out, during this missile attack, Russia used previously unknown kamikaze drones. At the moment, Western military experts are furiously discussing photos showing the wreckage of one of these drones. Judging by these photos, it can be concluded that this drone has a wingspan of more than 4 meters, a pushing propeller, and a square fuselage. According to witnesses, these latest Russian drones are radically different from the geranium kamikaze drones. According to them, these latest drones fly at a very low altitude, at a speed of 200-300 km per hour. Numerous witnesses in Kyiv also confirmed that the latest Russian drones flew to their targets at an altitude of 20-25 meters. This led to the fact that the Ukrainian air defense systems did not see these drones on their radars. In addition, the flight of these drones at an altitude of 20 meters did not allow the Ukrainian military to use anti-aircraft missile systems. As a result, almost all of these latest drones have successfully hit their targets. It is reported that during this attack, out of 50 kamikaze drones, only one drone did not reach its target, crashing due to a technical malfunction. So, in cities such as Sumy and Chernihiv, Russian drones have again hit local power substations. In addition, Russian kamikaze drones also struck and destroyed 3 local enterprises that worked for the needs of the armed forces of Ukraine. In the city of Kyiv, these latest kamikaze drones struck and destroyed 2 classified NATO facilities, where 800 tons of ammunition were stored, as well as 2 units of newly arrived HIMARS multiple launch rocket systems. Ukrainian telegram channels and numerous experts still cannot understand how Russian intelligence manages to regularly detect such classified enemy objects. It seems that the Russian High Military Command, indeed, has its own informant in the ranks of the armed forces of Ukraine.